This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
The Bengals, to me, are one of the most interesting teams in the NFL. And part of that's because they always got something going on, right? And in order to talk about that, get a scoop on to something going on, I'm bringing on Ace Boogie. You know him from AFC North Talk, New Stripe City. Ace, the big question with the Bengals is we know that they have some real serious players on offense, right? Whenever you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, there's no question if those guys are serious. But when you look at the Bengals and how they have operated over the last couple of years with those players, do you get the feeling that the Bengals are being a serious franchise right now?
I think they're half serious. It's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Because I think when you look at it, truly a team in this circumstance with Joe Burrow, you talk about the championship window, that team is attacking the weaknesses that they have, right? They currently still don't have a 3-tech, in my opinion. I think PFF just came out with their rankings today with just individual players. No Bengals on that list. They were in a situation where I felt like they could trade up during this Joe Burrow window. They've never done that. They haven't taken the swings I feel like they need to really take care of those weaknesses. I talked about 3-tech, offensive guard, interior. I don't feel like they've really taken a fully serious approach to that. So I would say that they're a half serious organization. And I think from what it is they're serious about the wide receiver situation. But honestly, like the insight to that is that Jamar Chase was refusing to sign unless T. Higgins was signed as well. So I'm not like, I'll give the Bengals credit because they did it, but their hand was forced, right? And when you have guys having to force the franchise to do these moves, I cannot say that you're 100% a serious organization. So I feel like it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They will do the minimum to try to appease certain individuals on the team, primarily Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, the fan base, but they will not, and they haven't shown me that they're willing to go all in with teams that are in similar situations, a la the Philadelphia Eagles, a la the Buffalo Bills to a point. You know, the Kansas City Chiefs, once they ended up losing to the Bengals, they kind of put forth a better effort in the draft and in free agency to clear up those holes, whereas the Bengals, you would assume that this isn't a team that fell short 2 years in a row. You would assume that the way that they're in cruise control would be similar to what the Chiefs are doing this offseason. And that, to me, is just like, bro, you haven't won a championship. Mike Brown's getting older. Even for your dad, are you willing to go all in? And I just haven't seen that from them in terms of them being a 100% serious organization with teams in this window. It's one thing to be like this with Andy Dalton. You don't have a chance of winning. But, bro, you have Joe Burrow, you have Jamar Chase, you have these pieces here, and your window is closing because we're talking about now you've had to pay Joe, you've had to pay T and Jamar. Now you're operating in what the norm is. And if you're not drafting well, if you're not being aggressive in other ways, I can't look at you as a serious organization.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about it, because it does seem like even with like some of the things that feel like layups for the Bengals, didn't you find out like, oh, well, you know, they had to kind of pull teeth a little bit to make it happen. And it's like, oh, you should be thrilled to be in a position to spend this money on Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow or any of the sorts. Speaking of somebody who's been wanting their money, Trey Henderson, I think he's been the storyline of the Bengals offseason. And then there's like a fun little side plot, which also goes into edge, right, with Shamar Stewart, whatever's going on with his rookie deal. We know he'll play this season for the Bengals. They'll get that figured out eventually. The Trey Henderson part, right? What do you see as like, do you think that this is at a point to where an outcome can be reached that makes everybody happy, or do you think that it's gone past the points where everybody's kind of just dug in to whatever outcome they want, and this is just even if Trey plays, even if they make a trade, do you feel like it's gone past the point of no return for a normal relationship between these two parties?
I actually don't. I think from Trey's perspective, seeing how these things have been handled in the past, Trey doesn't seem to the point where he's like, I just want completely out of there. Like he's doing certain things. He's being very methodical in some of the things that he's doing, right? So the way that this first started was that originally Trey Hendrickson signed a deal with the Bengals. He was not a known commodity that much at the time. He was seen as a replacement for Carl Lawson. They essentially gave him the deal that they offered to Carl Lawson, which had much fewer guarantees. Basically, only his first year was guaranteed, right? So they took the chance on him. It worked out, right? After about a year, Trey's like, hey, look, I made the NFL top 100 list again. I'm clearly the real deal. Let's do something. I'm not happy with my contract, which is fair, right? Because, like, you signed the contract, you outperformed it. We see this all the time. People are like, let me get a pay bump, right? So at first they didn't do that. Then they gave him this extra year, right? So it got a little weird because they gave him the extra year. They gave him an extension to basically be that second year guarantee that he really wanted, even though we're talking about extending the contract. And so after that, he comes back the next year after that saying that he wants an extension again. He's still not happy with it. This was basically sufficing or satisfying that first part of that second guarantee year that he felt like he missed out on from the beginning. So then this is where it gets a little weird because he's asking for an additional extension when legally he actually can't get one because he already accepted the other one. So he's asking for more years and money in a time where legally by NFL standards, it can't be done because you already accepted the other one. And so that put them in a space where it's like, all right, we understand that you don't like your deal. We gave you this first extra year because you didn't like your original deal. Let's table that into this offseason. And so that was the year when they tabled it. That was the year where he requested the trade, he requested the extension, and everybody was like, this doesn't make sense because you already just accepted the other extension before that.
That was last offseason, right?
That was last offseason. So he was basically stuck. So this offseason, he was promised that they would return to the table and they would make the deal better from that standpoint. Well, the priority became obviously Ja'Marr Chase. Like in that pecking order, it was Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, then Trey Hendrickson. Bengals end up breaking the bank for T. Higgins, which a lot of people honestly thought T. Higgins wouldn't get done just because they didn't see the Bengals being able to pay two receivers and they felt like they would go somewhere else with it until T. Higgins changed agents, went with Rocky Bowman. That's the same agent as Ja'Marr Chase. And Rocky Bowman and Ja'Marr Chase were basically like, if you don't sign T, we're leaving. So that situation got handled. Then it gets to, all right, so what are we going to do with Trey Hendrickson? While this is happening, something very similar that happened in the T. Higgins situation last offseason, the market exploded. More edges start to get signed. The money goes up. In my opinion, this is something that they should have done, taken care of 2 years ago. But now they're in a situation now where you also have to pay Trey Hendrickson X amount of money. Here's the dilemma that they're in. The Bengals defense was trash last year. Like we all know that. They were bad. They were not a good defense. It's one of the reasons that, and of course, also I don't want to take any pressure off the offense. The offense could have came through at certain points in certain games as well, but mostly the defense didn't live up to par. So when Trey Hendrickson wasn't on the defense, they were, I believe, 32nd in pass rush. Every pass rush metric you can think, they weren't good. He had 17 of the 33 sacks. The issue is the Bengals were still bad defense. They were still ranked like 30th. So do they want to give all of this money to this guy that only made the defense rank 30th with them having an emphasis of an investment on offense? And we know that our defense is bad. The other dilemma that they have, which I don't agree with, I've never agreed with, and the Bengals feel like this because the last time when Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap were there in their 30s, they gave them an extension. Well, guess what? Geno Atkins fell off of a cliff. Nobody saw that coming, myself included. He fell off of a cliff. He was no longer anywhere close to the all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber player that he was. And then Carlos Dunlap, he kind of was okay, but then he ended up demanding a trade. So the Bengals basically lost on those deals. And typically, they never really extend guys in their 30s. I don't know what it is. It's kind of a frigid thing. It's like one of their 10 commandments of Bengalism. It's like, thou shalt not extend somebody 30 years old. And so Trey Hendrickson is 31. Now, with Trey Hendrickson betting on himself, it worked out, right? He led the league in sacks. So you can't say he's not worth the money. In my opinion, I think that they should pay Trey. In their opinion, they're worried about the Geno Atkins thing again. They had this happen with Andrew Whitworth. And you would think because the Andrew Whitworth thing they were wrong on, that they would be like, hey, you know what? We were wrong on the Andrew Whitworth thing when we said that he was too old. This guy winning was an all-pro with the Rams, won a Super Bowl, didn't fall off until he was about 38. Maybe we're wrong on this. But they are set in their and what it is that they do with not wanting to pay 30-year-olds. And then also they only move that needle on the guaranteed money for the second year for certain players. It's only been Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It wasn't even T. Higgins. Like if you really get into the nuts and bolts of T. Higgins' contract, technically this year that he's on right now is not guaranteed. It's not fully guaranteed. It's the second year that's fully guaranteed, which really still puts you at 1 year guaranteed, which is typical Bengals stuff. So I think where it's at now, Trey has a good relationship with them. He showed up this season and went on the local news, right, with a Bengals jersey on. So he's aware of, I don't want to turn the fan base against me. I want to be here. These guys just need to pay me. But hey, I'm respectful to them. I appreciate what they did for me. They took a chance on me. It worked out. But I am criminally being underpaid right now. So I think it's at a point where if they figure something out, I don't think that the damage is done. Whereas if they just continued to lowball him and like badmouth him and stuff like that, then I would say it would be ugly. But the fact that this guy is still showing up at OTAs, even though he's not practicing, right? He's there to answer questions. That says to me, this is a guy that wants to be there. And he really just wants to know certainty for his future, which I can't be mad at him about that. He wants to know where his kids are going to be going to school. He wants to know where his family is going to be at. And so the Bengals have offered him. It's rumored that the Bengals offered him, I believe it was $28 million for 1 year. And he was like, no, I want multiple years. I want guarantees. I don't want them put in the form of the Bengals have to make the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship. I just led the league in sacks. I just made first team all pro. I shouldn't have to play with escalators in my contract. And I understand that. And I get where he's coming from. So I don't think that this is an irresolvable situation. The only way that it goes nuclear, in my opinion, is if the Bengals were to try to force him to play on a $16 million contract for one last year. I think that's the only way that goes nuclear from that perspective.
But you think if he takes the 1 year deal, the 1 year deal, he's something he would eventually take down the line?
I think what the Bengals want to do and why he doesn't want to do it is they want to give him probably the $16 million this year, and then they want to add the $28 million and bump it up for next year. And so then he's like, yeah, dog, I could at least go out there and get 38, 40 million on the open market. I don't want to keep extending this and going into this uncertainty every year. That's where he's kind of at with it.
Yeah, I get that Trey's probably not at the place where he wants to blow it up yet. Do you think that that's where Katie Blackburn is, right? For those of you who don't know, Katie Blackburn is the daughter of Mike Brown and in charge of a lot of the Bengals finance stuff. Like that's the big question here is like, okay, Trey's not going to take it there, but is Katie going to put him in a position where he's going to have to take it there? Or just like accept a very subpar deal for himself. Like, what do you see being more likely? Is like that Katie shows some bend here, or that Trey decides to just completely fold? Because I don't think he's going to fold completely here.
I don't think Trey is going to fold. I don't know if his agent is savvy enough, like Rocky was with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, to pull it, because a lot of people are like, is this guy representing himself? Because some of these decisions that are being made and some of these things that are happening aren't really making sense. I don't think Katie's bending to his current representation because I think his current representation is a little aloof. They're not on top of things. And it seems like Trey Hendrickson is basically guiding whatever it is that he wants to do. I don't think that Katie is going to do that unless they are finessed into some kind of situation where Katie has to submit. I don't think that this is the situation right now. Not with Katie. I don't think that they have the upper hand on her right now. I think that the Bengals, unfortunately, do have the leverage. And I think it would be different if the defense wasn't bad, but because the defense was so bad, because they've drafted 2 edge rushers, they probably feel like, hey, our defense is going to suck anyway. Why should we pay this guy X amount of money? Where to me, I would rebut that and say, because this is your pass rush, because you are in the Super Bowl window, and even if you want to do something like the Colts where you have a Dwight Freeney and a Mathis, and then the rest of your defense isn't that good, and you just survive off of your offense plan, that's the key. But I don't see KD bending on this. The only way that this changes outside of his agent, which I don't think that the agent is going to do it, is if Mike Brown himself steps in and forces KD's hand in a way. And that's happened certain times. That happened with Andrew Whitworth, where they didn't want to, like KD literally told Andrew Whitworth, we are against this. We don't want to give you this extension or this pay bump when they did it. So it would have to be something similar to that, where KD is being overrode, because I'm almost 100% sure that this is a Katie Blackburn thing. She goes in with the low ball. She acts and plays hard ball, waits for them to try to cave in. And I don't think Trey is caving in this situation. I think he caved last season because he didn't have options. This season, I don't think he's caving.
Do you think a trade's on the table?
I don't think a trade is on the table, because the Bengals, when they trade, they want to know that they have won the trade. And what that would mean is a team would have to give them a first-round pick. I don't think, if you're talking about like a third-round, fourth-round pick, they're not going to take that for Trey Henderson. They're going to want to at least part with him for like a first-round pick. And we saw that with the Carson Palmer kind of situation. Now, a situation that was different than that, where Mike Brown kind of stepped in and did this guy solid, was Carlos Dunlap. Carlos Dunlap didn't like Lou Anarumo. It wasn't working. They clearly didn't like each other. Carlos was willing to give some of the money back from the deal that he did for them to trade him. So in that situation, it was a situation where Mike Brown, if he's close to certain players, he will do them a solid. In this situation, that's the only person that could make them probably come up off of the first round pick. It depends on how Mike Brown feels about Trey Hendrickson. If they have a great relationship and he wants to do right by him, he will. Like, they're not gonna, like, as bad as the Bengals are in terms of how they run things, they traded Corey Dillon to the Patriots, like, for nothing. They traded Chad Ochocinco to the Patriots for nothing because they wanted to give them a chance to win. But now you have a chance to win, so I don't know what that would look like. But I think because of the draft passing and you're not getting any immediate return on that investment right now, I don't see it unless it's like a first round pick.
All right, but Ace, that's a good look at what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals, Trey Henderson situation. Make sure you go check out Ace, New Stripe City, and also on AFC North Talk. Anywhere else where people can find you?
Cincinnati Podcast. So me and Zim do the Cincinnati Podcast on YouTube, so check that out as well.
All right, check it all out, man. Appreciate you for coming on, Ace. Everybody else, have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.